Parshas Vayishlach deals with the Indian of the Gid Hanasha, known as the sciatic nerve. The Torah tells us after the battle between Yaakov and their Sarasho Esav, the angel, so in Perek Lamed Beis, at the last pasuk of the in Perek Lamed Beis, chapter 32, pasuk Lamed Gimel, verse 33. The Jewish people are prohibited from eating the sciatic nerve until this day. Because they hit the sciatic nerve of Yaakov. Yaakov came out limping by his hips, by the hip socket. Yaakov. So the Torah tells us about the prohibition of eating the sciatic nerve, the Gid Hanasha. So this is actually a major discussion in Maseches Chulin on this issue. It's a famous Mishnah in Chulin, Daf Kuf Amud Beis. The Mishnah says there's a machlokas in the Mishnah, dispute in the Mishnah on what are the parameters, how far does this prohibition of eating the sciatic nerve, the Gid Hanasha, apply. So the Mishnah writes, Noheg b'tahora ve'eno noheg b'tameya. It only applies to a kosher animal, but not to a non-kosher animal. So if you eat a non-kosher animal, you violate eating a non-kosher animal. But if you eat the Gid Hanasha of a non-kosher animal, it's not prohibited. That's the first opinion in the Mishnah. Rabbi Huda Omer Af b'tameya. Rabbi Huda says no. You're liable even if you eat the Gid Hanasha, the sciatic nerve, even of a non-kosher animal. So whatever you violate for a non-kosher animal, you violate as well an additional prohibition of the Gid Hanasha. We're not getting into the whole topic of Ein Isser Chal Isser, whether you could have both Isserim. But the simple reading of the Mishnah is that the first opinion the Mishnah says it only applies, the prohibition of Gid Hanasha only applies to a kosher animal. And Rabbi Huda says it even applies when you eat a non-kosher animal. If you violate, you could violate Gid Hanasha even with a behema tameya. And Amar Rabbi Huda, how does Rabbi Huda know this? That the prohibition of Gid Hanasha even applies to a behema tameya. Because Rabbi Huda says, Halo bimdei Yaakov. We learn now from the children of Yaakov. Nesar Gid Hanasha. The prohibition of Gid Hanasha applied to the children of Yaakov. It says, Alkain, the pasuk we just read, that the Alkain lo yochlu b'nei Yisrael is a Gid Hanasha. You can't eat the Gid Hanasha. So this applies, we see it applies to b'nei Yaakov. V'adayin behema tameya muteres lem. In that time, there was no kosher or non-kosher. It's a separate discussion what they took upon themselves on their own, as we've discussed in different shiurim. But there was no concept of kosher and non-kosher until the Torah was given at Har Sinai. So we know there was no concept of behema tahora tameya, and yet we see that behema tameya was permitted, and yet the Gid Hanasha was usher, because there was no concept of kosher animals. So therefore, we see that it applies even to a behema tameya. Dadayim behema tameya muteres lem amalo. So the answer back to Rabbi Huda, no. Misinai, b'sinai nemar, it was said on Sinai and Har Sinai, ela shenichta bimkomo. But it's written in its place. So what exactly does this mean? When the Mishnah Chulin says, b'sinai nemar, ela shenichta bimkomo. So the two tremendous chidushim in their own right, Rashi and Chulin, Daf Kuf Amud Beis, and we'll see the Perish Mishnah, the Perish Mishnayos, the Rambam in Maseches Chulin, Perek Zayin Mishnah Vav. So what does Rashi say? What does it mean? So Rashi says, Pasuk Zeh says, Hiro Allah b'Sinai Nema. This pasuk, that we have to be careful not to consume the Gid Hanasha, that was given at Har Sinai. But Sinai los huru And there was no prohibition there was no prohibition for Bnei Yaakov. There was no prohibition before Sinai for eating the Gid HaNasha. It just wrote in they wrote it in a historical context. After it was given to Moshe on Har Sinai, because he was writing the Torah, the Sidir Moshe es HaTorah. When Moshe was putting the Torah together, he threw in this pasuk. It almost seems like if you read the pasuk, it always looks like a throw-in. And okay, after the whole story, and therefore we don't need to get Hadasha. So Rashi says a tremendous chiddush, and no, there was no problem eating the Gid HaNasha. Maybe there was no behemoth tameya then, there was no prohibition. Gid HaNasha, the prohibition did not begin until Har Sinai. That's how Rashi learns. When the Mishnah says, B'Sinai Nemar, Ela Shenechta B'Mkomo, it was given in the mitzvah of Gid HaNasha, the prohibition was given on Har Sinai, and afterwards Moshe went back and he put in the prohibition B'Mkomo. He wanted to put it into its historical context. That's the chiddush of Rashi, that Gid HaNasha wasn't prohibited until Matan Torah, until the Torah was given later on, and therefore, and that's how he goes back, and and you plug that into the machlokas in the Mishnah, whether noeg b'tara ve'eno noeg b'tmeya. Rabbi Yehuda says af b'tmeya. So that's the Rashi. The Rambam in the Perish HaMishnayos has a tremendous chiddush, and I'll quote you his lashon, at least some of it. He says, "V'sim levavcha l'chlal haggadah, sim b'libcha l'chlal haggadah hazeh." I want you to put your heart and listen to this very important principle I'm about to teach you, which we've discussed many times in different classes. What is this tremendous klal, this tremendous principle? Hamuva b'mishnah zu, which we learn in this Mishnah. V'hu Amran, when it says Misinai Nesar. V'hu Sha'ata sarach ladas seichel ma sha'anu nizhara mimeno o osim oso hayom ein anu osim zos elo ve'siva Hashem ayidei Moshe lo b'vdei Hashem siva b'kach l'neviim shekidmu. In other words, he's saying is, and we'll see Gid HaNasha as one example. All these mitzvahs in Bereshis, we'll see Bris Milah, Gid HaNasha, perhaps Avelis. All these mitzvahs are only binding on us because it was given to Moshe at Har Sinai. Gid HaNasha was given to, Rashi says Gid HaNasha wasn't given until Har Sinai. The Rambam writes no. Gid HaNasha was given to the Bnei Yaakov, but that has nothing to do with me, personally speaking. The reason why I can't eat a Gid HaNasha, the reason why I can't eat from the sciatic nerve is because God told Moses on Har Sinai, you can't eat the Gid HaNasha. If it was just given to Yaakov and Bnei Yaakov, it wouldn't be binding on me. Maybe we'd keep, maybe we wouldn't. But that's not, it wouldn't be binding. Maybe we'd do it out minhag, out custom, but ultimately it's not binding on us. And that's the klal of the Rambam. The Rambam writes, "Okain, saying ein anu ochlim aver menachai." Similarly, we don't eat aver menachai, one of the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, ripping off a limb from a live animal. Elo neisha Moshe asar aleinu aver menachai, because it was given at Har Sinai. And similarly, as we'll get into Milah, we don't do Milah because Avram did it. We learn different attitudes in history. We do it because Moshe said so. And therefore, that's what he says. Taryag, we know it, the Gemara in Machas, many places is Taryag mitzvahs. We always know there might be more, but we don't know what they are. There's different opinions. I mean, we know what they are. These different rabbis have different opinions, but they all conclude there's 613 mitzvahs. That means there are a lot more, but they count 613 mitzvahs, but each have a different counting. So it's called 613 mitzvahs. As we'll see, it's not called the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach plus the additional mitzvah 606. As we'll see, the Rambam writes in Hilchos Melachim, Perek Tes Halacha Aleph, Al Shisha Dvarim Nitztava Adam Harishon. On 6 things, Adam Harishon was commanded. Al Avodah Zara, not to worship idols. Val Birkas Hashem, it's a euphemism for cursing God. Val Shvichas Tamim, and on murder, you have to murder someone. Al Gila Arayis, illicit relations. Val Gezel, and on robbery. Val Adinam. So Afa Pisha Kulan Hein Kabbalas Miyad Biyadinam Moshe. Even though ultimately Moshe Rabbeinu repeated all of them in Har Sinai, Vadas Notelahem Michlal Divrei Torah Shal Elu Nitztava. Hosef. So he gave 6 mitzvahs to Adam. Hosef LeNoach Aver Minachai. He added a 7th mitzvah to Noach, Aver Minachai, as the pasuk says, Ach Basar Benavsho Damalo Sochelo. So we find 7 mitzvahs, and the reason why it's called 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, the reason why it's attributed to Noach and not Adam, is because since the 7th was added to Noach, because Adam during his time they didn't eat meat, so there was no Aver Minachai. But since Noach got the last one, so we know we usually go al Shem Sofa. We go on the conclusion. And that's the way it was. There were 7 mitzvahs during the time of Noach. And to Avraham. But Avraham, when it's Tava Yeser al Elu, and Avraham added Mila, for who is Palo Shacharis, he davened in morning service. Yitzchak Hifresh Meiser. Yitzchak took off ties, v'hosef tfilas acheres, he added mincha, v'Yaakov hosef gid hanasha, v'tzpal aravis. And Yaakov added gid hanasha and David Ma'ariv. U'b'tzayin nitztava Amram, and Amram gave more mitzvahs in Egypt. Achaba Moshe Rabbeinu, v'nishma Torah yodo. Until Moshe Rabbeinu came along and gave us the whole Torah. So the Rambam's pointing out, it's called the 613 mitzvahs, Taryag mitzvahs. That's as we read them. The 613 mitzvahs are given to Moshe and Har Sinai. That's why we keep them. So we see whether it's Gid Hanasha, Aver Minachai, Mila. We don't do it because of Avram or Yaakov. We do it because Kasher Tziva Hashem, that's what God told Moshe. Commanded Moshe, and that's why it's binding. We just learned the history and the attitude. In fact, one more example from the Rambam in Hilchos Avel, Perek Aleph Halacha Aleph. The Rambam writes, Mitzvahs aseh l'sabel al kruvim. There's a mitzvahs aseh to mourn over your relatives. Shenemar v'chalti chatat hayom, and quotes the pasuk over there in Shmini. The ein avelos min haTorah el b'yom rishon b'vad. The Rambam's opinion is avelos, the mitzvah mourning, is only biblical on the first day, and not only that, but it has to be Yom Misa, Yom Kfur. It has to be the death and the burial has to be on the same day. About Shara Shiva, Eino Din Torah, but the rest of Shiva is only D'Rabbanan. That's the Rambam. That's the Sfardim, the Bali Tosfos, and the Ashkenaz. We say even Avelis. All of Avelis is D'Rabbanan. And that's how the famous Gemara Moed Katan, but the Gemara says there is no Avelis on Yantif. Why? Because the Gemara says, because the public mitzvah of Simcha beats out the private mitzvah of mourning. So according to the way the Rambam learns, Simcha's Yantiv is biblical, and Avelis is biblical, and therefore you have to say the public mitzvah beats out the private mitzvah. But today that we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, so Tos's opinion is that Simcha is only D'Rabbanan, and therefore Tos's also assumes Avelis is only D'Rabbanan. And therefore the public rabbinical mitzvah of simcha, however you want to learn the Gemara, according to the Rambam, the public biblical mitzvah of simcha even today beats out the private biblical mitzvah of avelus. According to Tosas, the public rabbinical mitzvah of simcha today beats out the private rabbinical mitzvah. So according to Ashkenaz, it's all Drabanan, but the Rambam holds that the first day is Daraisa. So he says, but you'll ask me, how come I only say day one is biblical, but there's a pasuk in Parashat Vayechi, Vayas la'aviv evo shiva shamim. But by Yaakov it says, there's a pasuk that they mourned 7 days. So if the pasuk says the mourning is 7 days, so why do I say Avelus is only biblical the first day? So the Rambam writes in Hilchos Avos, Nishma Torah is Chadsha Halacha. Because once the Torah was given Har Sinai, the halacha was changed. Or Moshe Rabbeinu Tikon Lam Yisrael Shiva Shemei Avelus V'Shiva Shemei HaMishta. So again, so even though they might have kept 7 days there, but that was just how it's derech eretz. That might have been the custom during the day. But the point being, the fact that they mourned 7 days, the Avos, doesn't mean we keep 7 days, biblically speaking. It might have been Ratan Hashem for them, but the point being the Rambam's making is, you can't bring me any proofs from Kodem Ma'anta before the Torah was given, because we keep the Torah based on what it was given Har Sinai. So Avelus is another example where we do Avelus because it was given on Har Sinai. And according to the Rambam's opinion, the first day is biblical, albeit from the pasuk, even though the pasuk implies all 7 days. And there's another example as well that the Marit Chias points out and others. There's a famous Gemara in Brachas we also spoke about many times. Who instituted tefillah? Is it based on the Avos, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, or is it based on Kedeged Karbanos? So the question is, what do you mean Kedeged the Avos? That's all we just finished saying, as the Rambam points out at Hilchos Malachim, that we only do mitzvahs because of what was given Har Sinai. Let me just point out, there's a Machlokas Rambam. The Rambam Shita is tefillah is biblical. So the Rambam's opinion is tefillah is biblical, and that's all we do because it was given Har Sinai. So how could the Gemara say that it's based on Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? So that's what the Marit Chias explains and others, that we know. We have the Klal Gadol Etzleinu based on the Rambam, Ein Lomdin Davam Ikudim Matan Torah, based on the Yerushalmi Moed Katan. And the Rambam writes that in Perush HaMishnayos and Gid HaNasha, and therefore he writes, Nehi the Avos Tiknu, it's true the Avos might have instituted it, Mikol Makam Ein Taknasam L'chol Aleinu. That has nothing to do with me davening Shacharis Mincha Ma'ariv. When they that's why the Gemara has to say the Anshe Knesset Gadola Tiknu Kineged to me. That's why we have the other opinion in the Gemara. It corresponds to the Karbanos. Anshe Knesset Gadola said it corresponds to the Karban, the morning sacrifice in the afternoon. The Rak Mishum Taknasan Ranu Mitzuvim Wasan. That's the only reason why we have to do it. So again, another example. So to summarize, we've been pointing out the significance of the mitzvah, what we learn out from the mitzvah of Gid HaNasha. We see that we saw the pasuk in the Chumash, Al Kain Lo Yochu Ben Yisrael Gid HaNasha, and yet we found in the Mishnah Chulin a machloket whether the Gid HaNasha is it only prohibited in a kosher animal, or it's also prohibited in a behemoth tameya. And Rabbi Yehuda wanted to bring a proof that the fact that we see that Bnei Yaakov was usher in Gid HaNasha, and there wasn't a concept Vadayin of behemoth tameya, Vadayin behemoth mutaret, and there was no concept of even they could eat a behemoth tameya, even though the issue of Gid HaNasha, even though there was still an issue of Gid HaNasha. And that's what we said. Based on this Mishnah, you have a major machlokes Rashi and Rambam. What's the pshat in the Mishnah? Amalo b'sinai nemar elo shenechta m'komo. So the Rashi writes to be Kaddish. You're right. Gid Hanasha wasn't usher until Har Sinai. After Moshe got to Har Sinai, he went back and put us in here. Al-Kain lo yochel Gid Hanasha. But in Achanami, it wasn't usher before. And the Rambam says no. That everything, it's true, everything became usher at Har Sinai. Everything became binding at Har Sinai. It's not, but it was usher. The Avos did take on different mitzvahs and also took on different Yisroim. They had the Yisroel of Gid Hanasha. They kept Avelos, they might have daven. Or they kept Avram and Achai. But that was either B'Torah, Shabbat mitzvahs, B'nai Noach, or different things they volunteered on. But it has nothing to do with me. If the question is, why do I keep Milah, Gid Hanasha, Avram and Achai, Avelos, and Tefillah? The reason why we keep it today is because B'Sinai Nemar. Because God gave the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu Har Sinai, and it became binding on all of Klal Yisrael.